Have you ever heard of a single man who stood against an entire army and almost changed the fate of his country with nothing but courage, a rifle, and unbreakable spirit? This is not a myth or a movie. It's the true story of Dimitrios Itsios, the forgotten Greek soldier who almost single-handedly killed 232 Nazis during World War II. His bravery was so legendary that even his enemies saluted him in death. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Twist Tale channel. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my videos on other platforms. It really helps the channel grow and brings more incredible forgotten stories like this one to life. Now, sit tight, because this story will give you chills and make you question what true heroism really means. It was the spring of 1941. The world was already drowning in chaos. Nazi Germany had swept across Europe like a storm, crushing every resistance in its path. France had fallen. Poland had burned. Norway and Denmark were under Hitler's control. And now, his eyes turned south, toward Greece. Greece, a small mountainous nation with a proud history, had already stunned the world once. Just a few months earlier, the Greek army had repelled the Italian invasion from Albania, pushing Mussolini's forces back despite being outnumbered and outgunned. The victory became legendary, but this triumph came with a cost. The Germans were watching. In early April 1941, Hitler ordered Operation Merida, the invasion of Greece. The German forces poured through Bulgaria, aiming to crush Greek resistance and secure the southern flank of Europe. But standing in their path was a chain of ancient fortresses known as the Metaxas Line, a network of bunkers and tunnels carved deep into the rocks of northern Greece. One of these fortresses was Fort Rupel, and it was here that the destiny of a humble Greek sergeant would turn into legend. Dimitrios Itsios was not a general, nor a man born into privilege. He was a simple soldier, a machine gunner from a small village in Macedonia. But beneath his calm eyes burned something extraordinary, the spirit of Leonidas himself. The Greek army at Rupel was vastly outnumbered. Facing them was an elite German division, armed with tanks, heavy artillery, and air support. The Greek defenders had little more than rifles, old machine guns, and courage. On April 6, 1941, the German offensive began. The sky thundered as bombers screamed over the mountains, raining destruction on the Greek bunkers below. The earth shook, tunnels collapsed, dust filled the air, yet the Greek soldiers refused to retreat. Amid that chaos, Dimitrios Itsios took position behind his machine gun. He could see the enemy approaching through the smoke, waves of gray uniforms advancing with mechanical precision. "Hold your ground," someone shouted, and they did. Itsios pressed his cheek to the stock of his weapon, took a breath, and opened fire. His gun roared, cutting through the first line of German troops. The bullets tore across the rocky terrain, mowing down the invaders who dared climb the slopes. The Germans regrouped, advanced again, and again. Itsios met them with fire. Hour after hour, the battle raged. The air was thick with gunpowder. The Greek bunkers were shaking. Yet Itsios kept firing, reloading, shouting to his comrades to hold their lines. The Germans tried everything: mortars, grenades, flamethrowers, but every attempt to breach the fort was met with a storm of bullets from Itsios's gun. As the hours turned to a full day, the ground outside the bunker was littered with German bodies. The attack slowed. The soldiers hesitated. Rumors began to spread among them, about a Greek machine gunner who would not die, who seemed to have endless bullets, who was holding back entire battalions alone. By the second day, the Germans brought heavier weapons. They launched a coordinated assault with air strikes, artillery, and infantry. The fort's defenders were exhausted. Many had fallen. Ammunition was running low. And yet, Dimitrios refused to leave his position. Even as the German tanks moved closer, he stood firm, firing until his machine gun nearly melted from the heat. Inside the bunker, the surviving Greek soldiers watched in disbelief. Itsios had become a symbol, a human wall between them and annihilation. Every time a German soldier tried to climb the rocks, Itsios cut him down. Every time an enemy grenade landed near him, he threw it back. He wasn't just fighting for his life, he was fighting for Greece itself. By nightfall, the battlefield outside Fort Rupel had turned into a graveyard. Later, even the Germans would record in their reports that one Greek position alone inflicted over 200 casualties before falling silent. That position was Itsios's. When his ammunition finally ran out, Itsios didn't surrender right away. He took his last grenade, waited for the next wave of Germans, and hurled it with precision. Then, surrounded and out of bullets, he stood up, calm, unflinching, and faced the approaching enemy. The German soldiers, amazed by his defiance, didn't shoot immediately. They captured him and brought him before their commanding officer. The officer demanded to know who had held up his entire regiment for 2 days. Itsios looked him in the eye and said, "It was me." The German officer reportedly stared at him for a moment, then asked, "Where are your men?" "They're all dead," Itsios replied. Silence filled the air. Even the German soldiers couldn't help but feel respect. Here was a man who had fought like a lion, alone, against impossible odds. The officer hesitated, perhaps considering sparing him, but then, orders came from above. The Wehrmacht had strict rules. Any soldier resisting after surrender was to be executed. Itsios stood tall as they prepared the firing squad. Witnesses later said he didn't beg, didn't plead, didn't even blink. He only said one last thing: "I did my duty." And with that, he fell. After the war, German officers admitted that Dimitrios Itsios had killed over 232 of their men before being captured. Even they could not deny his bravery. In a gesture rare in wartime, the German commander ordered his body to be buried with full military honors, a tribute to a man who had earned the respect of his enemies. Back in Greece, his name was almost forgotten for years. The chaos of the occupation, the civil war that followed, and the politics of the time buried his memory beneath layers of history. But in the small villages near Rupel, the story of the lone machine gunner was whispered like legend, the man who stopped the Nazis. Decades later, historians uncovered military reports that confirmed the impossible. One Greek soldier had indeed held off hundreds of Germans almost single-handedly. His name resurfaced, and his story began to spread again. Monuments were later built in his honor, and his name was finally given the place it deserved among Greece's greatest heroes. Think about that for a moment. One man, standing in a bunker, knowing he couldn't win, but refusing to back down. He didn't fight because he thought he could survive. He fought because he believed some things were worth dying for. Itsios's courage wasn't about hatred or revenge. It was about love. Love for his homeland, for his brothers in arms, for the freedom of his people. That's what made him unstoppable. That's what turned a simple soldier into a symbol of resistance. Even today, when you visit Fort Rupel, you can still see the narrow tunnels, the old machine gun posts, the stone walls that shook under German fire. You can almost hear the echo of the gun that Dimitrios Itsios fired, the rattle that defied an empire. His spirit still lingers there, carved into the silence of those mountains. And there's something hauntingly beautiful about that. He never expected fame. He never expected medals. He simply did his duty, and that was enough. In a world where most of us fear losing comfort, he faced death with honor. In a time when nations were burning, he stood like a mountain and said, "No further." What makes his story even more incredible is how it mirrors the ancient spirit of Greece itself, from the warriors of Thermopylae to the rebels of 1821. Time and again, Greece has proven that the size of the army doesn't matter. It's the size of the heart that does. Dimitrios Itsios didn't have 1,000 men or modern weapons. All he had was courage, and sometimes, that's enough to change history. Imagine being in that bunker with him, hearing the explosions outside, knowing that the enemy is closing in, feeling the ground shake beneath your feet. Every instinct tells you to run. But you stay, you fight, you refuse to give up because you know the world is watching, even if no one remembers your name. That's what makes Dimitrios's story timeless. It's not just about war, it's about human will. It's about standing up when everyone else has fallen. The Germans may have taken his life, but they couldn't take his legacy. They couldn't kill the idea he represented, that courage and sacrifice can outshine fear and oppression. In modern Greece, his story is now taught as part of the incredible defense of the Metaxas line. Schoolchildren visit the fort where he fought. His name is engraved on memorials. And in his hometown, the old people still tell his story with tears in their eyes, as if remembering a relative, because heroes like him belong to everyone. He was only a man, but he became something eternal. When we think of World War II heroes, we often remember big names: Churchill, Roosevelt, Patton, or Rommel. But real history is made not just by generals, but by people like Dimitrios Itsios, men and women who fought with nothing but faith. His sacrifice reminds us that bravery isn't about winning. It's about standing for what's right, no matter the cost. The next time you feel small, or powerless, remember this man, standing in a cold stone bunker, firing until his last bullet, knowing he wouldn't see another sunrise, but fighting anyway. He didn't have superpowers, or fame, or armor. Just a uniform, a weapon, and a heart that refused to break. Today, his story continues to inspire soldiers, historians, and ordinary people around the world. Because courage like his doesn't die, it echoes through generations. And maybe, somewhere out there, his spirit is still guarding those mountains, reminding us that freedom is never free, and that one brave soul can hold back an army. So, the next time someone says one person can't make a difference, tell them about Dimitrios Itsios, the Greek soldier who almost single-handedly killed 232 Nazis and changed the meaning of heroism forever. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Twist Tale, like this video, and share it on your social media so that more people can know about forgotten heroes like Dimitrios Itsios. Because sometimes, history hides its greatest legends in silence, and it's up to us to bring them back to life.